And welcome all you wonderful people to this month's Mapping It Out behind the scenes of Project DEIOS. We've got an interesting show for you tonight. Quite literally, it is a show. We're going to be showing you another demo of a dev demo, which is basically what the devs release just before they release a new patch. That's right, there's a new patch that's going to be coming out next week, so you get a little bit of a sneak peek of what you can expect in the new patch. And let me tell you, I had so much fun this afternoon when I got my grubby little paws on it. It is an absolute treat and a pleasure. And as always, whenever a new patch comes out, a nice new step forward for us towards getting that ultimate map maker in our hands. Now, tonight we're talking about the past, the present, the future, old bugs, new bugs, other people's bugs. It's a bug's life that hopefully will end quite quickly with each new patch anyway. It's a bit morbid, I guess, but nonetheless, it's true. We don't like bugs here. So you have an opportunity to ask questions. My guest tonight is Till, the CEO of DungeonFog. So if you have a question, please put the word question in caps in front of your question, and I will be able to see it, whether you are joining us on Twitch or on YouTube. Either way, it will come through to me, and then I will be able to ask it directly to the man in the hot seat. So let us bring him in. Till, hello and welcome to the show.
Hi, hello. Thank you for having me as always. Hello everyone. Thank you for joining. And oh yeah, and thank you for adjusting me. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Another month over, which is weird, but it has happened. And yeah.
They go by so quickly. So quickly. Now, Till, quick question. Have you ever seen a world map for a fantasy setting that you think is actually at a world scale? Have you ever seen a planetary map for like
I know
any
okay,
setting?
So when I was planning my new campaign for my office games, I was looking for a place where where I could locate it, because I don't feel confident enough to come up with my own world yet. For those of you who don't know, I've been playing 6 years D&D now, so I'm a young game master. So I was looking for maps, and to answer your question, I know that there is a digital, like an interactive map of Toril, like the whole. I think it's the planet, isn't it? It's the D&D planet, Toril. It's kind of the whole thing where Faerun sits and the Moonshae Isles sits and everything, Sword Coast. So everything of the D&D world sits. So I think that is probably the map that I would call closest to an Earth map. That's quite impressive. I know that there's a gigantic map of Golarion, which is the Pathfinder world.
That's right, yeah.
Apart from that,
not many.
Not many. I eventually decided to place my new campaign into Wildmount, and Devin Rue, who created the Wildmount map for the book, has also created quite an extensive, like a really extensive map for Wildmount. So that is close to, but it's probably more like, I mean, we know that Wildmount is a continent. So it's not a world map, but I'm pretty sure of the whole, was it then called Exandria, the world? Is that there might be, someday there might be a world map. But yeah, it's rare. It's rare. I think most maps are region maps or like continental areas.
And usually small continents too, because I don't think we as humans really grasp just how big actually is.
Yeah, that's true. I can tell you, I mean, not to go ahead of what we're showing today, but when I was testing some of our functionalities, and I was tracing Iceland, and I was putting it into DEIOS, I realized that that's not much. That's a small island in terms of the whole canvas that you have at your hands.
Right. Right, absolutely. So there's some hints there, folks, for those of you that are listening to what we're going to be talking about coming up in tonight's show. Now, we talk about scale, obviously, scale being a very, very big or very small thing, depending, and you don't know what it is until you actually have a scale to measure it. Now we originally had a scale in DEIOS, and then that got temporarily suspended. Why was that?
So it was in the first alpha, the bad alpha, the alpha that we do not talk about. No, it was in our first attempt, in our first alpha attempt. And when we reworked the alpha, we also had to rework, or we didn't have to, but we wanted to rethink and rework our complete, what we're calling a scale index, of everything that's in the system. Like from the prop, from the asset that you place, to the grid, to continents, to the whole map, everything is related to each other when you think about sizing and scaling. So we said, we're not releasing the same scaling that we had initially, but we keep it back and rework it once we have time. And the only reason why it got delayed for some time was because of the "until we have time" clause in my previous sentence. That was just, it was always pushed back for some other things, until I eventually said, okay, enough is enough. We need scale. We need it back. And that's why we have reintroduced it.
There we go. And it has come back in quite a different way. Now, we will have a look at what I mean later on, but you have now brought it back, but with more functionality as well.
Yes, with a little bit more functionality, I think with a lot more usability or helpfulness to what you expect from a scale. And also with a lot of knobs in the back end that allow us to tweak and adjust for things to come. Like, for example, we're Europeans, which means that we use the correct metrics. So everything is currently in kilometers and meters. But I know that there are other countries who believe that, what is it called? Imperial scale?
Yes.
Yeah, is a thing. So we are bringing that in too. So we've adjusted everything to have that at hand. And if you would ever come up with your own metric system, your fantasy or sci-fi or cyberpunk metric system, then our tool would be able to implement that too.
Excellent. I want everything in qubits. I want it to be 1,000 qubits in length, to go back to a very old system. Now, to our audience members, we heard Till listing some of the giant worlds that Till is aware of. Are you aware of any giant full-scale worlds? Because we're going to give you a little demo a little bit later on as to just how big the Sahara Desert is in terms of a map. And I think you're going to be a little bit, well, if you're anything like me, you'd be going, huh, that's big. Anyway, now we're talking about the new patch. Till when well, hang on, before we get to the new patch, let me ask you this question. How does 2021 look to you as a year so far? Are you happy with 2021?
Yeah, well, yes, of course, I'm happy with 2021. So first of all, it is in the weird, it's a Schrodinger's year to some extent, where it is extremely long and for some reason suddenly over. So it was a very, well, exciting year, let's say it like that, because it was a very work resourceful year, and also it's time's running through our fingers. In terms of days development, I must say, it is now almost exactly 12 months since we have switched from our realization that our Alpha 1 is not going anywhere and we need to rebuild it, to where we are today, which basically represented a reset of our development state. We had to start over. And I think we are now exactly where we've lost a year. That's undeniable, but unavoidable now because we can't turn back time. But from the new start of the alpha to where we are today, we're exactly in the trajectory of what I was hoping that we could achieve. So there are bits and pieces where we are slower than we expected. There are bits and pieces where we are faster than we expected. But in the general projection of where we should be, we're quite good on track. So I'm quite happy with, and again, thank you to the development team. That wouldn't have been possible without you. There we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is there anything that you would change that you did in 2021 that you go, I don't really want to do that?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think so.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I honestly, nothing major. Probably, I think, look, if I would have known where we are today, like if I had the how do you call it, premonition of what is going to happen, I probably would have rearranged a few development steps because that would have been more balanced than in terms of development phases. We had some back and forth where we did something, then developed something else, and then redid bits to keep up. So if I could change anything, knowing what we did, I would probably just rearrange a few tasks. But that's it. I think we're
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I certainly would rearrange a lot of my schedule too, I guess. Now, till the new patch comes out next week. And
yes.
We're going to be talking about some of the things that are going to be included. So the new scale, for example, is included in next week's patch. Something that isn't included in next week's patch, though, is the blueprint system, which we had hoped to include in that. Now, that's because of one of those little bugs which we don't like, but it's a bug that is not of our own making. Is that right?
Unfortunately, yes. So the blueprint system is almost finished from our development standpoint. Unfortunately, it showed us that there is a bug in the Noesis framework that we're using, which isn't caused by us, but which is caused by the way that Noesis handles coordinates when they are passed from our UI to the renderer. So there, somewhere in the Noesis code, something is bugging out. And the only thing we can do is we can report a ticket to Noesis and wait until they fix it. So usually they are quite fast. So it takes them about, I would say, somewhere between a week and 2 weeks. But now we are dependent on their release schedule for hot fixes or patches. And we have reported it last week, if I'm correct. So we were hoping that it might be coming out next week. However, that still at least leaves us with no testing time. So we decided that the blueprints are not part of the planned release that is coming next week, but they are on a special release that will be dished out the second that Noesis has fixed their bug. So it's kind of a one feature sudden push to the auto updater, because once Noesis has fixed their stuff, we can automatically close our development builds and push it to the self-updater.
Exactly. Now, we are actually going to do a demo later on of kind of the blueprint system in its very infancy, but then you'll also see the bug, which is quite literally game-breaking.
And it's a roadblock. So in development terms, there are things that are really roadblocking you where you can't go any further in terms of development when you run into this bug. And we have done everything that we could for until this roadblock. but there are things that need to be fixed first before we can finish it. So what I handed to you today so that we can look at is everything we have in the blueprint system. And you will quite soon see where the roadblock sits and why it's impossible to hand it out right now.
Absolutely. Speaking of bugs, what's your bug of the month?
My bug of the month. I'm not sure if we're going to encounter it. We might encounter it. We might be able to reproduce it in the dev build. It's not going to be, however, in the release build, of course. And that is somewhere when you undo and redo brushes, somewhere in the later digits, like in the 4th or 5th digit of the brush color conversion that is happening when you undo, redo, it's being rounded. And this rounding can take a weird effect on your color brush. I think it is a charming effect. It could be a feature if we want to sell it like that. But it is a little bit surprising if you're working on a map and you're undoing and redoing stuff, and suddenly you have weird kind of color effects. It looks a little bit like you spilled water over your finger paint. And yeah, so I had a lot of fun playing around with it and seeing what I can do with it. But it was a bug that was not intended to be ready for release, but needs to be fixed.
Absolutely. Now, with the new patch coming out, you say that bug won't be included. Are there any other major bugs that have been sort of removed?
Yes, I mean patch? the big thing. Ilya has been working on that for almost a month. Is the undo redo for brushes, and all the effects that it can have when you undo redo landmass manipulation while the landmass owns a brush. Also, like now it starts to come together with if you remember last time we talked about the complications of undo and redo. So now regression testing is something that we really need to do, because we need to make sure that everything like the brush, the eraser, the landmass, the props, the text are still working when you go into, like when you go on time travel in your map, where you do something, undo, redo something, change something, undo, redo. It was mainly the undo redo causing a lot of bugs. Like this is one thing that is really complicated and where you have to pay close attention to what you're doing.
Certainly seems to be quite the issue, this undo redo. I see.
I'm not ever going to be a friend of undo redo in terms of development. It's a pain in the, you know what I mean.
I'm sure. Now, AK Writers got a bug of the month. Last Saturday, I ran into one where maps would suddenly turn all grey, no features recognizable, when changing something on the layer beneath. The only way that AK Writer could solve it was to clone the bugged layer.
Oh, that sounds like a DungeonFog, like a battle map editor thing.
Oh, it could be. All right. Well, let us know, AK Writer, if it was, and hopefully you submitted a bug report nonetheless.
Yes, that's actually a really interesting bug you're describing. So please report it, send a ticket. We will do our best to replicate it, and hopefully fix it.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's get into this new patch that's coming out with less bugs and with more features and things. I know something that we were looking at is the option of adding in map scale upon creation. Now, is that something that will be in the new patch?
Yes. It's not in the current dev build because it's not being finished yet. But with the new patch, you will be able to, when you create a new map, define the size, the canvas size of the map. So you can decide if you want to do a moon-sized, continent-sized, region-sized, Earth-sized map, or custom-sized, where you define kilometers in width and height, and that is going to be the map that you're creating.
Okay, and how does this fit in to the bigger picture of DEIOS, which is supposedly you could start on the solar system scale and then zoom all the way into the basement cupboard of a witch on a little island in the middle of nowhere? How does predefining your base size, how does that sort of fit into that bigger picture?
The general concept behind that is, if you think, let's assume that you have two maps, like you have a solar map, right? Or let's assume you have 4 maps. Okay, you have a solar map. You don't have an Earth-sized map or moon-sized map of the whole planet, but just of a region, because that's all you need. Your campaign is only taking part in southern Germany of your whatever your world is, right? Then you have a city map, and then you have the battle map. So what the whole software then can do is, again, you can link all those maps together, which means that when you have a planet, and you probably just pick a planet image, like you're not rendering your map to the planet, but as you have in the background right now, you just take a fantasy Earth version of an image and put that as a planet in your solar system. Then you can put a pin on wherever you like, where you say, okay, this is the landing zone of southern Germany. And when you click on the pin, it brings you to the region map that you have created. So you don't have to have the whole planet as a map. You can have just a region map, and the pin takes you there, which means that in that region you could have Munich, the city, and it's pinned again, which means that when you click on that pin, you get the city map of Munich, and then you go into the battle maps, which means that it is flexible enough to go without the obligation that you have to create everything just to have that that descent from space into dungeon.
Planet. I like that. I do like that, because it was kind of worrying that you go, well, I have to make the whole planet before I can start anything else. I think that's great. Now, something else that has been getting some love recently is the asset library. Now that's changed. Talk us through that.
So interestingly enough, it actually didn't change, but it went back to its original state, because I think the asset library, as we did in our Alpha 1, was quite amazing in terms of searching for assets, organizing and structuring them with tags, and having quick access to all those things was quite good. So we slowly grew back into that, and now we have reached the state that we had initially, which means that you can now search your assets, also search for tags. We can internally tag and group assets with additional keywords, which makes, if you think about that, at the end, the whole asset library is filled with at least 3,500 assets. And we have learned our lessons from the Battle editor, which means that there should be a good way to organize and structure and search those assets. And I think we are on the right track with that now.
Absolutely. And you headed off my next question, is what have you learned from the DungeonFog battle map editor, really? Their asset library, because that's several thousand props and growing. Yes.
Well, we have learned that the way that we're doing it in the battle map editor is not a good way. It's a good way to start when you have 800 or 1,000 assets, but not if you have a couple of thousands. So this is a good example of the way how DEIOS development is influenced by the battle map editor and then re-influences back the battle map development, because we know that once we have finished the paths tool in the battle map editor, the next thing we're going to address is going to be a new advanced prop library in the battle map editor. And I can already say it is related or almost exactly the same as we're doing it in DEIOS, because eventually we're going to marry all those systems into one application and then they all should be the same in terms of how they feel and how they behave.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fantastic goal. I think it's really exciting. So moving away from the asset library, we then turn our focus on a tool that I think everyone was very excited about when we spoke about it. It felt like it was only last month that we spoke about it, but the artist's palette and the pre-generated palettes that come from Keora and other makers in the future. Has that been added to the patch?
Yes. And it is such a great addition. It's one of those things where you think it's just a minor improvement, but when you actually test it, it turns out to be such a lifesaver, because now you don't need to pick the colors yourself. You can take the color recommendations that the artist hands out with his assets. And the way that we have planned the system is that every artist, because now it's Keora as our main artist, but in future there will be different artists who contribute to DEIOS, that if they submit their assets, they can also submit a color palette file that will then be available in DEIOS alongside with the assets that we pick, which is amazing, because it means that the assets and the brushes and everything that you do is in sync in terms of the artistic approach and the aesthetic feeling.
Absolutely. And you're going to see, we're going to be showing you that in a little bit as soon as we get there, which is coming up. It really is coming up. But what I found amazing as well with the artist suggestions were certain colors that I went, really? You want me to use purple when painting a green forest? How does that make sense? And then little memory cells from art class came back where you have to paint with different colors to create different effects.
Yeah,
anyway, we're going to show you
I can tell you I had exactly the same feeling when I was entering the palettes, like when I was transferring them into the system. I triple checked if I didn't make a mistake, because I was like, and that's the wood palette. Oh, interesting. But yeah, and it works. That's the beauty. Like, if you really test it out, it looks amazing.
Yeah, it does. It really does. We also got a new button, kinda, sort of, called Settings, or
Preferences.
It's a work in progress. Preferences. Yeah. There we go. What's in Preferences?
Okay, Preferences is over this year, basically over the past 12 months, we have accumulated a lot of little buttons that are actually not intended to be part of the whole UI. Like, for example, the language switch doesn't have to sit there. So having a preference window is helpful, because there you can accumulate all those settings that shouldn't be available all the time, because they're not tool settings, but they're software settings. And also, it is a great launch platform, and that's what it is at the moment. It's a great launch platform for adding more stuff later. Like right now, we're going to have a look at it. Right now, there's not much that you can do in the preferences. But now that we've established that tool, we can add and add and add to it. And you will see in the screens that we have planned quite a lot of stuff for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, speaking of planning ahead and that sort of thing, you've got a roadmap for us, Till. Shall we go through that?
Yes, I would love to.
All right, here we go. This is the roadmap as it stands.
Yes, exactly. So from the left to the right, patch 0.3.4 is the patch that's coming out next week. And as you can see, it is basically, it's finished. Now we're just killing bugs. That's all we do. We said we want to take this week to get rid of the few bugs that we still have in there and finish the final bits and pieces of stuff that should be in the patch. I think by Thursday this week, probably Friday this week, we are finished. And then it's just testing over the weekend. And I would say somewhere between Monday and Wednesday next week, we will hand it out, if everything goes as planned. Which means that the patch will include the brush undo redo fixes that we've been working on. So you can now undo redo brushes in the mix with undo redoing landmasses, props, and all the other stuff. We now have the thumbnail rendering, which means that when you save your map, it automatically generates a thumbnail and you have a little preview of the map in the dashboard. We have improved the precision of our color pipette. So picking up colors and brushing them or applying them to landmasses is a lot easier now and more precise. The artist color palette is in there. The prop picker has now the search and tags implemented. We have the new improved scale system, the new menu, top bar menu with the settings is there, which will allow you to adjust grid opacity. As a first step, later you will have different grid options there as well. And you can define the map size on creating a map itself. So all of that is going to be part of the next patch. And then we still have a few things that we're currently working on. And that will be handed out with the next patch, or as I said before, the second they are finished. So in the core, we now, again, we see that we're running into performance issues. So we preemptively want to improve and fix performance before we really get a problem with it. We can now finally address the native macOS ARM improvements that we wanted to do. We are going to start working on the database rework that we need to do for our layer system. And the advanced export is another thing that is quite soon planned because we know that export is heavily demanded. So that probably might be together with blueprints because blueprints is upcoming. That's the next thing that's going to happen. And then we are, an interesting point here, we are reworking our landmass drawing to make it look better because we know that the way that landmasses are shown artistically is not great. There's a lot of improvements or space for improvement. So that is, we actually had a big call on that today, and the work is starting or has started today on improving that. And then, of course, since we are working on databases and layers, we are reintroducing our layers UI. And I think, I'm not sure if we are finished with it until our next mapping it out. But I definitely can talk about what we do in terms of the whole layers in layers concept in our next mapping it out, which, by the way, just a quick reminder, is in January.
That's right. The next one is January, so there's no mapping it out over the festive season, as there's a law against talking about DEIOS during the festive season. So till 2022, what's your prediction? What are we going to see by the end of 2022? What would you like to see by the end of 2022?
Okay, so first of all, our goal, I'm not sure if we can achieve it because, I mean, we learned our lessons from roadmaps and reality. Those are two different things. But our goal is that around end of quarter one, we want to close development on world maps. Which means we're not closing it forever, which just means that we're shifting focus, because by then we should be ready to start with city map development on the city map maker. So my guess would be world maps are going to be almost finished to a state where they are beta material. I'm pretty sure that city map making is going to be finished as well. I'm not sure if we can finalize the solar system next year, but The next big thing is then bringing the battle map editor into the application. That will take, because we are working on a separate task, we start working on that by January, but we don't have a good estimate on how long it takes. We think it takes at least 6 to 8 months to merge that together. So if we're lucky, then battle maps are available in DEIOS by the end of next year as well, which would then actually bring us into closed beta. But, you know, as I said before, roadmaps and reality, so we will see. I'm fairly confident world maps are going to be done and city maps are going to be done. The rest, we will see.
The rest we will see. And we will be here the whole of next year taking you through that step by step.
Yes, so reminding me of what I said now.
Yes.
Like,
do you remember what you said?
Why did I do that?
So to sum up, we've got a new patch coming out next week sometime, which is going to bring us a whole bunch of features, which we are going to have a look at now, as well as there is no December show. So there will be a show in January, and that will be at the end of January, the last Tuesday of the month, as per normal, and then we will resume our regular programming. So with all of that being said, Till, shall we now get on with the actual demo of the new product?
I think no one's going to want to see that, right? I think we can call it a day, don't we?
Well, I suppose so.
Yeah, okay.
No.
Well,
it's been a long day.
Yeah, it's been a long day. Okay, so run it.
Right. Okay, so what are we looking at here? We've got sort of the interface.
Yes, that's the
nice
dashboard.
Thumbnails popped
And
in there.
it's so much better if you have thumbnails. Like, that is, especially for me, like, if we would be looking at my screen now, because we're currently looking at your screen, with all the test maps, I have somewhere around 24, which means that it's, and I'm great at naming my maps. Like, they're demo 2, test demo, demo September. I think we can see one. I sent you one, which is September
Yes.
demo. So not seeing what is inside is a big problem for me. And now it's finally solved, because now I can see the thumbnails for it. And they are kind of live rendered, which means that whatever you do is being updated. So you always have the actual preview of your map in the dashboard.
Yeah, I did like that. I absolutely like that. All right, so let's create a new map, shall we?
Yes.
Right.
So not in this dev build, but available in the patch, is going to be, oh yeah, call it live stream demo. So we're all confused. There sits a little, don't click create now. There sits a little area here that is currently just grayed out, blocked. This is going to be for the patch next week. This is going to be active, and you will be able to define your map size here before you open the map.
Nice and quick. And there you can't see it.
Yes, because
I'm in the way. I'm going to just...
yeah, make it small.
I'm just going to
No, it's not helping, because I think it's the interface is still hiding it, right?
Yes, all right.
The overlay.
By the power of shrinkage, we shrink you down.
Yes, and now
a
we
bit
can see
more,
it.
And now you can see all my windows and things, but that's all right. There we go. And
There
now
we
you
go.
can see
The scale.
the scale in the
Okay.
very small bottom hand of your screen, but we can't move that. So you'll have to tell the devs they need to move the scale for the streams, please.
Yes. I now that I see it, I realize I probably should have sent you a screenshot. That we could have enlarged a little bit.
I can't make it bigger either, so that's it. That's,
No, it's fine. I think
that is what it
everyone can see it, and next week everyone can test it. So the thing is, the important part is we have, first of all, the scale is always fit to the grid, which means that if you move your grid around, you will see that it always fits exactly the grid.
It's lovely.
Which I think is quite helpful.
Yeah.
The second thing is we have created a few intersections, because I think that's helpful. Like we're taking we took the inspiration from the way that a lot of real world map scales are, where they have kind of a half section, full section, and then a long section. So you can see here that you have two grids defined in kilometers, and then a bigger one showing you more information. So while you zoom, it always updates and stays true to your current size, and that is actually quite impressive. Not impressive in terms from technology, but impressive when you open old maps, because you suddenly realize, oh wait, that's the scale I did my map in. So it suddenly gets, and that's important. I think a good map doesn't work without a scale. It gets dimensions, relations. So
That's it.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Now you might think that, let's just pop in here. Let's say 640 kilometers, which is about 1,100 miles, unless my maths is wrong. It's probably wrong. Might be the other way around. I can never remember with miles and kilometers which one's bigger. Either way, it's either bigger or it's smaller, but we're going to make a little continent here just to give you a little demonstration. So here we go. Here's a pretty decent sized, I would say, landmass. And I'm going to drop an asset very quickly. We won't talk about the features just yet, so I should have just used the search function, shouldn't I? But there we go. There's a there's.
You want a mountain? Yes.
There we go. There's a mountain. I'm going to drop a mountain onto this space. I'm actually going to drop several thousand mountains onto this landmass because, and I'm going to go right in there so we can have a look at these mountains so you can see that they are actually there. So there is a decent sized mountain. We're now at the scale of 10 kilometers. So we can see there that if we place down a whole series of mountains, we have our little mountain display. And now I'm going to zoom all the way out again. And this is why I was asking that question right at the beginning of the show. How many of you think you've actually seen a world scale map? And the reason for it is now I'm at 6,500 kilometers, which is about half, just over half the width of the map. Just the Sahara Desert of planet Earth is about this big. I drew off the edge of the map. Let me undo. Let me start that again. We're at about 5,000. So just that there is just the Sahara Desert.
Yeah, although to be absolutely precise, the Sahara Desert is very thin. So if you go 5,000, it's only 1,500 kilometers in height.
Which is one block. Okay, so my bad.
Yeah.
Oh, we're finding all sorts of things today. All right, so just the top half. The bottom half, this half is irrelevant. So there's the Sahara Desert. That is just the Sahara Desert.
Yeah.
And then you've still got to add in the whole of the Amazon and you suddenly realize just how big these maps actually are. That when you start to zoom in on these really, 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 really nice mountains, but really, 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 really small mountains, that the planet map is massive. It really is massive. All right, let's talk about some of the features that have been added, Till. Shall we start with the DEIOS button up here?
Yes, so the DEIOS button is going to be the place where we put in probably several different menus like the save map, import map, export map, stuff like that. So this is kind of probably going to rename it to menu later down the road. But right now it's called DEIOS, and it contains the preferences. Now the preferences are currently, again, they are very thin populated, but we're going to fill them later. Right now, under general, we only have this option, which is still experimental, is the outline only. That we want to leave it in there. We're going to rework the whole outline system eventually, but we didn't want to take away anything because we don't know what you are currently doing with the alpha. So we didn't want to take anything that we've already released away from you. Then you can see that there is still grayed out, but there are preferences. And So eventually, Nikita has already proposed quite a lot of settings that we can do with preferences to help you optimize for your PC setup. Um, so this is coming in there eventually too. Then we have language, where we currently have English, German, and Russian as languages, based on our development team and everyone who was willing to help us translate, which, by the way, is a call to you. If you're interested in helping us, we are going to release by the end of, well, by the end of the year, most likely. We're going to open up a little translation project where you can, if you like, if you want to, where you can translate those labels and submit to us your language translation file. We are slowly going to evolve that into different languages. But again, if someone's out there who likes to do something like that, we're more than happy to get the help.
Nice. And then there will be UI.
Yes, UI I think is also quite interesting. That is also being proposed, and like the concept paper is ready and waiting for development. So someone has to pick it up eventually. But that is where you can rearrange your panels, where you, if you prefer your toolbars on the right side, if you prefer your menu to be, I don't know, automatically hidden on start, all of that will be in here. So you can readjust and rearrange the UI. It's going to be very rudimentary at the beginning, and then slowly evolving, hopefully, into something like a widget system where you can really customize your UI to the extent that you would like to have.
Fantastic. Okay. So that's the DEIOS button, the view button.
Yes.
That's the blueprint button.
The view button is going to have, I can't remember what else. There are a few things that we want to have in view. Probably, from the top of my head, I can't tell you. But there are other things than just the blueprints. But right now,
secrets.
Yeah, or probably a tired Till who just forgot all the stuff. So right now they're the blueprints in there, and it is almost fully working. It's just we're getting to a point where suddenly it starts to break, and we can't continue until it is being fixed. So let's try it. So adding a blueprint basically opens an option where you can import all the blueprints that you would like to have. So you could select one and probably select another one too. And if you would like to, a third one as well, but you don't have to. But here you can already see that something weird is happening, and that is that the way that Noesis passes those translations to the render stage is not correct, and it's nothing that we can fix or we can do about unless Noesis changes something that allows us to really address those things properly. So you can see you can place them down, you can already zoom in, zoom out. However, the second you're trying to select them, Noesis is internally giving some bugs and some error messages. And so it is...
Now it's linked to my brush.
Yes.
I can't draw the shape of the content. It's sort of...
Go for it. You can do it. It's getting longer and longer the more you move down.
Yeah.
So this weird behavior is currently causing us to put a stop to the development until Noesis comes back with a fix. And as always, we have a plan B if Noesis for some reason does not come back with a fix. Then we can do a different approach. However, we're hoping that we don't want to do anything. We don't want to rush it. We want to give Noesis the time to fix it, because it would help us a lot if they could fix it. But if we get the feeling that this suddenly becomes a drag and we can't wait any longer, then we can do a different approach as well.
Well, I hope it was working, and now it's changed.
Well, again, the thing is, the position is not the position is in flux, I would say, where it sits. So you sometimes accidentally touch it or don't touch it. let's just talk about what the cool idea. Let's assume that it is already working, right?
Yes.
What you can do is you can take several different blueprints, put them on your map, and each blueprint should be then selectable. You can see it in the selection menu that there are a few options planned to be, which is rotation and scale of each blueprint. Then there's going to be flip vertical and horizontal, so you can mess around with your blueprint. There is going to be a lock function where you can lock your blueprint, and the width and height are linked, but you can unlink them, which means you could distort it. So the idea is, where we want to have the Noesis tools in there is Noesis automatically hands transformation gizmos. So we could use the transformation gizmos to allow you to transform your map on the canvas directly. Yeah, that's the blueprint system. That's where we are. And again, that's the bug that we have, and we need to wait for an update so we can actually continue development here.
All right. So we're going to go back to the main screen here, just so we can open up. Shall we open up this one to talk about the new brush tools? So there is a little piece of land that I have made, all 1,200 kilometers of it, roughly, with the new brush tool, until we start zooming in and in and in and in and in, and there we go. We start to arrive at a landmass. We said about 20 kilometers.
You did the reverse tilt demonstration. Usually you should be starting small and zoom out and out.
Oh, I see. Yeah, no. This is. I think this shows you really the scale that we're dealing with here. And I think I had some of your. Yes, there we go. So remember you were talking.
Oh yeah, that's one of my beautiful bugs.
An artifact in the paintwork.
Yes, and that happens when you, in the current version, when you're brushing a lot and you're undoing and redoing the brushes, it can happen.
Yeah, we had some nice ones up here.
Yeah, there we have some too.
And that is from the new brush. Now the way that the brushes are working is also quite different too, which I think is quite fun. So
I don't think that it's a lot of different. It's just improved a little bit.
All right, it feels different. So firstly, we've got the pipette, which the color picker, which now picks up color more accurately.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So we can now pick up all the different colors, and it's picking up the color from the surface, not the actual color that was used.
It's picking the color that you. It's not picking the original color, so it's picking the mix. So if you're selecting from a transition where two colors blend, it's taking the blend color and not the original green or the original brown.
Makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. All right, so that's the first thing, I guess.
Yeah.
That we need to talk about. Then we have our usual interface, but now we have the active palettes and these new artist palettes.
Exactly. So if you collapse you can collapse the upper ones, which is the
recently used one,
and the top one too, if you like. So you can that's how I usually work now. Is I just have this available, and I pick from the different color palettes that Keora has provided.
And then you just start painting.
And I just start painting, right? And I say, okay, this is foundation for a forest, because I think you have, it's very small for me. I can't really read. You picked the forest. Yes. Correct.
Yes.
So this could be forest foundation. Then you're adding a little bit of highlights to it. And it really starts to shine. Like it really gets interesting the second you go in and start adding trees. Because it blends so nicely with the assets.
I'm just randomly adding in color here. Let's just sort of spot it a little bit. There we go. Something like that. All right, and then let's look at our assets.
Yes. Keep in mind that you're currently probably at 500 kilometers zoom distance.
Yes. So I need to zoom in.
So you need to zoom in, and it suddenly gets a lot more interesting, because when you're zoomed in, I think somewhere around 200 or 100 kilometers is a good scale. Now it's starting to get interesting in terms of how those colors blend, because I think that looks quite cool. It on the zoomed out, it's not. I think it works, but I would have recommended to use a bigger brush on the zoom out.
Sure.
But now let's go for, I don't know, what would you like to do?
Let's use these 3 trees, shall we?
These 3 trees. Well, mix it with one of the dead trees. That's always kind of nice.
Yeah, let's do that. And let's put some birch in there.
Yeah.
And some of these in there. I'm holding down shift, by the way.
Yeah. So you're building a
library.
A library.
And then spacing. What would you recommend for spacing?
What was it by default? 5?
I think, yeah, it could be 5. Let's leave it on 5. Let's see what we get.
I don't know. And don't forget to use the amount.
Yes, we've got 3 set at the moment.
Okay.
We can make that more.
I would even go for 20. I don't know. Let's
be bold.
Be bold.
Well, that's better. And now we start to get our forest, and we can see that color really working. As you say, it works really well to have those tones underneath.
Yeah, and also, like if you, I think it's for the audience, zooming in a little bit would help. Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you bring that down now, and you feel like, okay, but we want darker areas in the center,
yes,
where the forest grows denser, and then lighter areas outside. You basically you go for the forest, and you say, okay, this is the darkest. These are the darker areas. There you go.
And what I really like is that you've got all of your colors here available to you, so you're not forgetting which colors you were sort of using, I guess.
Yeah.
And already that's starting to look pretty damn good, I must say. You want it sort of lightening towards the edges. Oh, well, here we can see we want darkening towards the edges. Yep. Something along these lines.
Yeah. And again, there, if you decollapse, or if you open the palettes, and we look at them,
yes,
there are, you need to read it. I can't read it.
We've got a whole bunch: barrens, deserts, grasslands, ice caps, jungle, mountains, swamps, volcanoes. Let's put in a swamp here. It's really, I mean, it is pretty much all the biomes that you could hope for.
Yes, and just to be sure, we're not talking about a biome system here.
Well, sorry,
it's just the colors.
Diversity of habitat.
However, this is exactly what we're going to do with biomes, because it is, we know that a good system should populate your map with those colors automatically when you create a biome. So now we have, for all those biomes, it's kind of a hint of what biomes are planned there, because we now have the color palettes, which means when you draw a biome, we can automatically populate it with those brushes, and then blend them when the biomes touch. They can blend as they are blending right now. So this is all pre-work of what is coming next year. I'm really happy with where we are now.
That's really exciting. Absolutely exciting. What else did we talk about till? I think that was pretty much it that we've covered.
Let me check.
Out of time as well.
Yeah. I think the important part was we have touched, well, brush, undo, redo. Everyone can test it later. Thumbnail rendering, we've seen color pipette, we've seen color palette, we've seen prop pickers, search text, yes, scale, new menu settings, and the 2 things that are missing right now will be part of the patch, which is grid opacity and creating map size, create maps with custom size.
Yeah. So
there we are.
There we go. Okay. Now, I hope that demo sort of inspired you for the upcoming release next week. Certainly, I can't wait for it to drop out in full. But if that hasn't inspired you, there is something else that should inspire you. At least, let's just go here for now. And that is, it is the festive season. And
Hmm.
so DungeonFog is doing something for that,
Yes.
aren't they?
Yes, we are doing something, and it's starting tomorrow. Um,
And it's
so they,
this.
it's this. Oh, don't you like what Bodhi did to our logo? I love it with the Dungeon Fog Earth and then the snowball instead of the dice inside. It's just Bodhi, amazing. Um,
Absolutely.
the Winter Wonderland from December the 1st to the 24th is a little event that we are it's an interactive tool that we're running on our website. And here you are seeing what it is. It's a little, how do you call it in English? Is it an advent calendar or a Christmas calendar?
Yeah, advent calendar, absolutely.
So it's a little advent calendar that we have there. And every day, one door unlocks and you can open that door. So,
Not yet.
not yet. No, no. Tomorrow is the first. Wait until tomorrow. Um, Behind each door lies a little asset, which combines up to 24 nice little Winter Wonderland, snowy snow and ice assets that will be claimable when you open the door. So you need to have an account to claim it, obviously. And for every door that you open, you get an asset or a little asset set. So some assets just make more sense if they come in threes or in fours. And by the end, you have, well, probably around 30 assets in a very winterish theme. If you miss, so it's staying, the whole calendar is staying available until the 31st of December. And until then, you can still go and open all the doors. Then we're turning it off. But if you've missed that occasion, all those assets will find their way into the marketplace eventually. So they will be there to grab. But if you want to have them for free, then grab them while they are in the advent calendar.
And who doesn't like opening doors and getting presents? I mean, it's just made
Yes.
my December so much better.
And they are amazing. I mean, I've been prepping them, so I know what's coming. I'm not going to say anything, but you will love them.
Well, there we go. Now, Till, are you doing any live streams in the next few weeks that people can catch up with you on?
I think the next live stream is going to be next week, Tuesday, most likely, because unfortunately I am currently recovering. So I've been ill, and I'm still not feeling quite well. So this week is going to be a recovery week for me, and next week I will be back. And then next week we will be doing our regular Tuesday community stream.
There we go. There is the community stream, so bear that in mind. Again, a reminder. Just a quick question from Filthy Casualty just came through. Do you have to grab the assets on the particular day the door opens, or just during the month of December?
Just during the month of December. Like if you wait now until the 24th, you can click 24 doors and grab those assets. If you want to go there on you, like in the lunch break on your phone, scroll down to the 3rd and pick it and grab it. You have claimed it. So that's up to you.
There we are. There we go. Lovely. Till we won't be seeing anybody in December as we are taking a break. So we will be back in the last week of January 2022.
Yes.
So I hope to see you all there. Till, any final words for 2021?
Well, since this is the last stream, all I can say to everyone out there, thank you very much for being there, for asking your questions, for being supportive, for being part of the community. I'm stepping ahead because we're not in December yet, but I wish you Merry Christmas and a happy festive season. And I don't know how you say in English, but Guten Rutsch ins neue Jahr. So a good start for the new year. And I can't wait to see all of you next year in January when we're reviewing everything that has happened until then, because I think there's going to be some quite amazing stuff to show.
Fantastic. All right. And from me, all I have to say is happy map making. We'll see you next year. And we're going to play out with a community thank you that was made specifically to say thank you to all of you. Until then, goodbye.
Bye.
What's got you down, Ogre?
It's my dungeon, Gobbler.
What's wrong with it?
It could be so much more, you know? With more stuff.
It can't be that bad. Let me have a look. No, you've got a nice swamp full of snakes and spicks. Ah, snakes and spikes. Very nice.
But, I mean, that's it. How am I supposed to attract adventurers with that?
2 words. DungeonFog.
Dungeon what?
DungeonFog.
For over 3 years, we have put all our love and determination into making DungeonFog the best battle map making tool out there. Thanks to you, our amazing community, Game Masters can pick from over 10,000 community-created and shared maps, and can turn them into their own epic dungeons to use and share. None of this would have been possible without you. Thank you. And may our tools always help you to create maps your players will never want to leave unexplored.
So, what do you think, Gobbler?
Well, it certainly is different. Different.